Boom. Boom. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Well, good morning, dear friends. Oh, having a little... There we are. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, great. I ordered yesterday a broadcast microphone, so within a couple of days I won't be using these little earbuds. Could you hear the Pali chanting? Yes, that's the monks at Abhayagiri. We are part of a river, part of an incredible flow of awakening that comes down through human history over the last 2,600 years. And those high tension, the transmission lines that you see for electricity in the hinterlands to greatest extent, the monks and nuns of the monastic orders are the high tension transmission lines of the Dharma. And then in each generation, each country, each language, that incredibly clean transmission is transformed down into the language and psychological orientation and so on of each culture. And so we're the recipients of an amazing transmission. And fortunately, it's still alive. And we can drink deeply at the what would you call it? The trough seems wrong. We can drink deeply of the Dharma. And I want to share with you a little poem this morning. It was written by Martha Abshir, who now lives in Ashland, in 1991. Sometimes it's called Cowgirl on a Bucking Zafu. And the zafu is that dense cushion that one sits on cross-legged, which is not required. Sometimes when I meditate, I feel like a cowgirl on a bucking zafu. Usually when I sit, my zafu trots along in that familiar gait of confusion or delusion. I think I know what I'm doing. Other times my zafu just ambles along, nibbling a tender shoot of the future here, a succulent leaf of the past there, delicious, aimless, moving from pleasure to pleasure. I try to remember to be present. Sometimes she stops altogether, dozes off for a moment, falling asleep, nodding awake. It's all I can do to stay in the saddle. Other times she's antsy, restless, discouraged, can't get comfortable, nothing works. Why even try anyway? Sometimes I stay, sometimes I quit. Once in a while I can feel my Zafu tremble and twitch in gradual warning, but other times she explodes with anger or fear, rage or terror, bucking and running, snorting and farting, wild, out of control. I try to stay calm. Whoa, girl, I say. Whoa, slow down. Take it easy. Breathe deep. It's just a feeling. Let it be. Let it go. Mostly, I just try to keep my seat. And to those of you joining us on Facebook and come on now, tuner. We'll just go with it like it is. I moved the computer so that the two cameras are sort of close together. May seem a little bit more, certainly better. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. A little upbeat refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha. May we all today really realize what that means and how it is practice itself. I take refuge in being awake, in being present with what is, and I do it in the company of my dear friends on the path, and in fact in the company of all life. I must say it's a pleasure to peer into your homes and see you sitting there. Wow, pages of us, amazing. So let's sit. Let's indulge in the best part of the day when our only responsibility is to be present in our own life. Why not begin with a few moments of gratitude? It doesn't take but a heartbeat to Think of something to be grateful for. My legs were working this morning. I got to get out of bed and walk to my tent, make my tea. I have some really fine gen matcha, Japanese green tea. And I have a nice iron Chinese pot I was given. And it lives in my house, where everyone's healthy at the moment. The dogs are healthy. And I get to be with you. That's a lot. Doesn't mean there aren't things that are difficult. But there are a lot of things that are working just fine. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in each moment. And so we can turn toward the body and open awareness into this that sits here. There is awareness and there are sensations. And with that capacity that you have of directing awareness, look or feel into different corners of the body, the hands, the feet, the face. Bringing what's called bare attention to this that sits here. And of course it breathes. For now, it breathes, so why not land in the breathing? Climb into breathing as you would a hammock on a sunny day. Rest in the breathing. Recognize the fact of the wandering mind when that's happening. Notice the 5 hindrances of desire and aversion and restlessness and agitation and worry and sloth and torpor, dullness and doubt. They're frequent visitors, so why not just acknowledge them? And then come back to breathing. There is a miracle happening here. It's the everyday miracle of consciousness and a body. This that we each take to be I and me and mine. An infinitely complex organism that sprung into being a little while ago. It's living its lifetime. And it will disappear. And so we inhabit this briefest moment of time. This nanosecond when the breathing begins. When it rises to fullness. When it declines and when it disappears. We inhabit this timeless moment. You may well have a long to-do list for today, or there may be emotional leftovers from yesterday. The mind may be thinking of ways to improve someone or something, or it may be in self-deprecatory hatred of self or others. It might be hopeless or helpless or fortunately, this is all the surface weather. When we drop into our depths, there's just this moment. Exactly as it is. And there is a subtle effort involved, a clear but subtle effort. And it's the effort to find the breath, to target it, and then to choose to move in close and to become more and more intimate with the breath. And this is paralleled by the intention of awareness, of awakeness, a willingness to devote oneself to, I want to know what's happening in this moment. When the mind is thinking, I want to know it. When the mind is doing anything, I want to know it. And when the mind is caught up in greed, hatred, and delusion, I want to let go of that and bring into being awareness, concentration, curiosity. Each one of us is the leading edge of consciousness evolution. It's right here that it happens. allowing the reality to dawn that there is no problem to solve. In this moment, there is no such thing as later today or today. There's just now. And now may be blissful or unpleasant, and it doesn't matter. It's just now. Sensations in the body, some pleasant, some unpleasant. There's liking and disliking. There are the complexities of memory and the story of our lives, the stories of justice and injustice, and success and failure. There are all the moments of perception. And this moment is just like this. Sometimes the mind will be calm and concentrated, and sometimes it will be a madhouse. Over time, weeks, months, years, it does tend toward greater ease, greater concentration, greater equanimity. But don't lose heart. If the mind of the moment is worrying or planning or somehow upset, simply recognize what is. And that very recognition is freedom and the path to freedom. And please let us now turn to the great mantra, I love you, with your name at the end. And if you had a childhood name that you like, or that could be resurrected, maybe, imagine yourself as a newborn. I love you, with your name at the end. Imagine yourself as a toddler or a crawling baby. I love you. Imagine holding yourself in your own arms, or holding yourself facing you at 12 to 18 inches, doing the gaze of connection, the gaze of infinity, the gaze of love. I love you, with your name at the end. Walking, running, bicycling, possibly. I love you, with your own name at the end. Maybe some difficult things happened in childhood. Sometimes really difficult things happen. Sickness, parental sickness, or death, or the death of a sibling, or all kinds of things. Hold yourself in that context. I see you. I see your suffering, and I love you, with your name at the end. In kindergarten and first grade, and learning to read, and social relationships, hold yourself in your heart. I love you. And elementary school and high school, and the emergence of sexuality and all kinds of complexities. Hold yourself in your heart. I love you. And so on through your entire life, from leaving home to college perhaps, to relationships, to work. Think of the things that have happened to you in this long lifetime. I love you, with your name at the end. Think of the difficult things that have happened. Losses, the loss of dreams, sometimes divorces, miscarriages, abortions, changes in financial status. I love you. Love yourself for having done the very best you could your entire life, given what you knew, given what you'd been conditioned to believe. Holding yourself in the great mantra, I love you. I love you, I forgive you, I accept you. And to hear this moment, what extraordinary karma to ripen as this vipaka. To be sitting in a group of people, opening to the Dharma, to what is. And looking into your future, your imagined future. I love you. And so now, dear friends, please do mindfully whatever stretching is needed in the moment, and very consciously let your eyes open. Let seeing begin. And in the seeing there will be In my case, a computer screen with, how many is it? It's 20 lives per page. How remarkable. Notice, are you more relaxed than when you began, or is there less stress, or is your sense of, we use this word heart, it's an awkward word. Is your sense of well-being more open? Is your sense of connection, even that's an interesting jargony word. Notice how this moment is. Just because we've moved from sitting with our eyes closed doesn't mean our meditation stops. I have a couple of invitations concerning PIMC. Gary Sanders is leading a day-long retreat on Saturday. And Gary's a fabulous teacher, and I invite you to join him. And you can have a whole day of practice. I think it's a whole day. But you can find out about that on the website. And Doug Pullen is still gathering students for his class on love, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And please, I invite you to reflect upon the importance or meaning of these gatherings for yourself. And they're certainly changing me. And my guess is they're a great support for you. And so I invite you to convert some of that sense of support and gratitude into supporting PIMC. It's an interesting and a little anxiety-ridden time. We have no idea, do we, when we'll be able to get back into the center. And we certainly want it to be waiting for us, and it is. It's in great shape. So enough of that. And then I keep being struck by the magnitude of what's happening. Jennifer and I will have a conversation, and she'll mention something, or I'll see something on the news, and there's so many repercussions of this pandemic around the world, and it's affecting. I mean, I'm experiencing such little effect. I have plenty of food. I sleep warm at night, but it's having like cataclysmic effects on so many people. And so it pushes me toward gratitude that I'm so fortunate. And it really is illuminating the truth of impermanence, anicca. Achan Buddhadasa said, many times I heard him, great Thai master, that the truth of impermanence shines at us with the brilliance of 1,000,000 suns. It's a miracle we don't see it. And one of the great delusions that we live under is the delusion of permanence. We actually think things are going to last. We don't really dive in and realize that that's really not true. And it's through that realization that we get more and more free, because then we realize that in a certain way everything's okay, completely okay, because none of it's going to last. There's abysmal leadership in some quarters, and it'll pass. And it's not it'll pass in the mundane sense, but it's really going to pass. And so to have, and this is the point I wanted to get to for sure this morning. If you have the opportunity to meditate and enter a space of great ease where truly nothing matters. I just remembered my teacher in India, Bhikkhu Rastrapal. There's a picture of him above the coffee place at PIMC. I don't know whether he was giving me a special lesson or whether it was just what he said, but he said, when I meditate, I don't think of you. I don't think of anyone. I don't think of anything. It's all gone. And I sort of understood him then, but I really understand him much more now. That in the present moment, when we're simply there, that's all there is. Now that's one end of the polarity. At the other end, of course, we have a self and we have a body and we have responsibilities, and there's horrible things in the world that it's a good idea for us, those who are so inclined, to be active and make things better. But here's the simile. If you have a cup of water, my cup of green tea this morning, and you put a tablespoon of salt in there, it's really salty. If you take that same tablespoon of salt, or a different one, but the same amount, and put it in the Willamette River and stir it around, it disappears and you can never taste it. If each morning, each day, we make the space to become the river, then the stressors of the day affect us much less, because they're coming into this space it's a great space. And we learn to do something to our physiology as well, so that we're less responsive and that's part of mindfulness-based stress reduction. That we learn to absorb the nasty comment or the whatever it is that arises in us, because we're absorbing it into a vast space rather than our frightened little personality. So I think that's what I wanted to say, and I'd like to open up to the sharing of the community. And I hope this is better. I think this would be a lot better on YouTube with with the two cameras together. So, opening up. Anybody have something to share on day 4,944 of COVID-19? We thought it was going to be a few months, and it turned out to be 7 years. Oh dear. May it not be so. Is this open? Oh, there it is. Okay. Open for your sharing, please, or questions, or complaints. I'm going to take advantage of this quiet. Jim, I can do this here. Can you take over from me tomorrow at about this time, 20 to 8? Great. I've got my annual physical is at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I've got to leave for the doctor 20 minutes ahead. Thanks. You know, I'm not getting any. I'm not sure whether the group is quiet or whether I simply have no sound. Margaret, you've got your hand up and you're talking and I can't hear you. Just let me check my settings. Oh, this technology. Preferences, test speaker, built-in output. That's interesting. Oh, I see why. Man, there's so many details. All right. Margaret, would you speak, please?
Okay.
There it is.
Okay.
Yay!
Well, my question is about games. I had a reaction to families were playing. My family was playing a game last night on Zoom. I have many siblings, and they're kind of fun, but there's always a winner and a loser, and I keep losing this particular game. And so I wanted to talk to you about why does that bother me so much, and what can I do?
Get better at the game. Look on YouTube how to play it. No,
Well,
that's not the question you're asking. Go ahead.
it's a thinking fast, doing fast on a computer, drawing. It I just don't work fast.
Right. Well, and it's your siblings, and you've had this, you've had sibling rivalry and so on your whole life because that's what we do. Yeah.
It seems so stupid. But
Well, that
Father, it
that might
wrecked my.
that might be a good a good place to start, which is the judgmentalism that it feels so stupid because you're having these very normal responses, and to love yourself in your childish pettiness of taking seriously something that is trivial. But of course we do, because that's the family emotional system. And also we have this self-esteem that gets injured, and so we, if my sister is better than me or my brother is better, and the self is very fragile, and so really taking care of yourself is crucial, and having an attitude of we've been playing games here more. We've been playing Mexican Train with dominoes, and it's really interesting watching my stepkids, who are very embedded in their self, and they're teenagers. It's very tenuous, and they really want to win, and I could care less because it's not of importance to me at all. I'm doing it mostly to have time together. It's a way to spend time together that works, sort of. But it's a hard won autonomy. Here I am, 72 years old. I'm bragging. I'm 72 years old, and I can play a game with my stepchildren and not take it seriously. Wow, I'm really developed, aren't I? But there's some truth to it, that that game is obvious to me is not of great importance, and so I can have fun. But we fall into taking things very seriously, and so having mercy on yourself, I think, in your family of origin is really helpful. There's something. There was one of the founders of family therapy, a guy called Murray Bowen, created Bowenian family therapy, and one of his concepts was that there exists a family emotional system, and that we never really can leave it. When you come back into it, the pull to go back into your roles and emotions and so on is unconscious and magnetic. And in the last years of visiting my parents in Montreal, and I could only go for 2 nights. I couldn't stay sane longer than that. And my pelvis locked up one day. I could hardly walk, just like my father's. And I was kind of waddling, and I stretched, and I was thinking, oh man, when I get home, I've got to get some body work and blah, blah, blah. And I got on the plane, and by the time I got to Chicago, it was gone. The family system had, and I couldn't release it. And it happened the next 2 times that I went back. The same thing. And I had no control over it. Similarly, the pull to drinking and our families have tremendous power, and it's with that notion of anatta, not self. when I take this not self into my family system, it wants to become what it was, and the system is strongly pushing. And sometimes siblings will mock you and say, "Oh, I don't want to gossip," and they'll be shred you. So I hope that helps.
It does, and also I was wondering, what is the thing with humans and winning and losing, like competition, right?
My guess is it's all about passing on your genetic code, competition, and it's built deep into us.
It doesn't feel very Buddhist, but
Well, to have competition and be playful about it, yeah, but it's written into our DNA that we're competitive. And so how we become conscious of that and then maybe use it skillfully, and how also sometimes we can just remain quiet and just, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hmm. Lorraine wrote something. It helps to have, I can't follow the chat at the same time as I'm talking to people in general. It helps me to have compassion for myself. I do this by telling myself it's understandable I would feel this way, and that accepting helps me see it as it is and more objectively. That makes sense to me. It was a big deal when I realized I couldn't go and stay with my parents for a week. My mother just, she was so upset, and you're only coming for 2 nights, but I get sick otherwise. It was just too sick an environment. And then, of course, they died. And then the system changed, and then there was more freedom. Because it's always in flux.
Good morning.
Hi, Gail.
Hi, as you guys were talking, a little thing happened to me years ago, and at the time I was recovering from a illness, and the social connection was problematic for me because I didn't have some family skills, some social skills, and I would go to this Scrabble game regularly, and there was a woman who took things very seriously, and when she did, she would like huff and puff, and it's as though she was inflating herself, and she kind of looked like a blueberry to me every time it happened, and I'd start to giggle.
Uh-huh.
And so I told this story to the counselor, and I said, I feel uncomfortable because I'm giggling a lot, and I'm afraid that she's going to take it personally. And she says, well, if she says anything about it, you can just say you're charmed by life. And I really kind of liked that because it like was a way for me to step out. And
charmed by life.
Yeah, and keep laughing,
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Robert?
Sherry.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
You've changed my life. I'm waking up naturally at 6 o'clock in the morning because I know I'm going to be here with you all.
Uh-oh. It's weird.
It's very weird. I wanted to share something. I was eating my dinner last night. I'm always on the computer, on my laptop, reading social media, looking at news, I can't, and realized you're always multitasking. You're never doing one thing at a time. So, and then I noticed how fast I'm chewing to get finished with my dinner because I live alone and I eat alone. I cook for me, and it just made me very aware of being here now. Chew slow, enjoy the food, and treat it as though I was on a retreat.
Right.
Anyway, then this morning I wake up and no, I'm sorry, it was later in the day. I turned on, I get something called the Writer's Almanac every morning, poem, and you're aware of it. And the poem was called The Last Meal by Bill Holm.
Huh.
On death row, you celebrate your last night with your last dinner, your choice, your last craving, to make at least your stomach happy before it stops craving anything at all. Many choose simple food, a hamburger, mac and cheese, ice cream. What might it be for you, my friend? Duckling ruinous, a roast of unborn lamb, washed down with Veuve Clicquot 59 and Old Armagnac? And how do you know, my friend, that you are not eating your last meal at this very table now? Chew slowly. Make sure you take in all the body and the blood.
Whoa. Will you send that to me, please?
Yes.
I'd like to put it in my collection. Yeah.
I'm not very techie. I'll try, Robert.
Okay, thank you. Or just send me the name of the author. It'll be fine. And the poem. Stephanie, thank you, Sherry. Wow, that's very powerful. It really is useful. We used to have a rule, I've given up, but we used to have a rule that there were no phones at the table. And because someone always wants to, let me show you something, and we're back into the stupid phones. And I've kind of given up on it now, but I think it's a good rule. No electronics at the table. Jim.
Robert, I had a thought.
Hello.
Yes, about how you've changed my morning. Now, I also just happen to be waking up early, about 5:30, and my wife doesn't happen to be waking up at 5:30. I mean, why would she? And so I'm spending time tiptoeing around so as not to wake her up. And part of the tiptoeing around is getting up, making coffee, doing different sorts of things. And in order to tiptoe, or in other words, in order to be quiet, I find myself being very mindful about every single little thing. As I put the coffee cup down, I put it down slowly and carefully, or as all of these steps, I'm very aware of them. And so I'm having a mindful morning. I don't really know how to do that for the rest of the day, but it's sort of striking that just by being quiet for somebody else, I find that I am focusing on just what I'm doing right at that present moment. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. You remind me of a traditional image somewhere in the Pali Canon, the Buddha, teachings of the Buddha, that if you were to imagine, to help yourself be mindful all day, is to imagine that you're balancing a bowl on your head, and it's kind of a shallow bowl, and it's full of water, and you're walking through busy, crowded streets, and behind you is a swordsman, And if you spill just one drop of water, your head is gone. It's a little grim, but and it's a little over tense, but it's an interesting image. Stay present. I do the tiptoe routine too. I use my flashlight on my camera to get out of the room as quietly as I can. Yeah. Ooh. So how are you doing with the isolation is one of my questions. It's different, isn't it? A very different way of life.
Hi, I just wanted to say my dog, when I look into his eyes, he looks more like a human being. So I have to make sure I don't get deluded. So,
You remember the basketball Wilson in Castaway? Even a basketball can start to have a personality.
Good morning, Robert. This is Kathleen.
Hello, Kathleen.
What I've noticed is that this morning I was adding people in my family in the beginning part of the meditation, just to include them in the mindfulness. And I noticed that I'm loving more deeply. And that I, you know how in life you go along and you're pretty much the same, and then all of a sudden there's like a shift, there's like a plateau. You feel like you've kind of gone up a step or something.
Yeah.
And I'm taking that into if I have to go out and my interactions briefly with people. And I remember years ago when I was at Alki and you were visiting, and we went to the Alki Cafe and we had a cup of coffee or tea or something. And I'll never forget it because you were so mindful with the person that was serving us. You know, you were so present, you were so loving, and it was always something that I wanted to aspire to. And I feel like that's happening.
Yay. I remember that. That's a long time ago, isn't it? It's 35 years probably. Wow. I lost your sound.
Yes, it's one of those moments in life, though, that, you know, we never know how we affect one another.
Right.
And it's something that's stuck with me. And, you know, I'm so grateful. And, you know, this time, it's a great time of change. It's a great time of deepening. And through this sitting every day together, you know, most days of the week, I think we're all changing, becoming more present, more loving, more mindful. So thank you.
Well, I would say we have time for one more person. It's 8:04 already. It's an interesting paradox between who cares about time and realizing, well, it's good to end on time. They both ends of the paradox exist.
Hey, Robert.
Christopher, hi.
I'll be quick, but with isolation, luckily I live with my parents, and so we have company. And I've realized when you don't have places to go, you notice the energies that one brings to the day affects everybody greatly. And I've just been more mindful of trying to bring a positive energy because I know how I feel when I notice that they're being positive as well. you can't escape. You can't write it off and run away, in this
Right.
situation.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then one logistical question. Are you going to have an online presence after this whole thing?
I don't think I'm going to stop this after this.
Great.
I think I may
That's great.
continue. This is a good thing.
I think so.
Yeah. So dark humor, but so next July when we can start being more normal. I don't mean July. I mean July a year from now. Then I think I'll continue. I think we're going to be able to open up some. If they'd finally get the testing stuff together, we'd be able to open much more effectively. But we'll see. Well, dear friends, anybody sitting there on the edge of your seat, please speak now. All right. So I'm going to open it up and we can sing our song. And where are we here? Oh, this is it. There we are. Hang on here. I'm looking for Stephanie. Where is she?
Hi.
There you are.
Definitely. Yeah.
All right. Ready?
Yeah.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Well, that was fun. Have a lovely day, friends.
So much.
It's such fun.
Adios. How's he doing?
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you.
Bye, everyone.
Keep smiling until then.
Robert, have a good day.
Goodbye, everybody. Hello, Rebecca.
Bye.
Let's talk today. I'll call you.
Okay.
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 Alrighty. Bye-bye, everybody. Hello, Janet and Lori and Maria. Hi. And Linda. Hello, Linda. I see your phone. And Athene. That's a very beautiful image. All right. Heading on out. Goodbye. Exit. All right. So, goodbye, dear friends on YouTube and Facebook and Ustream. Thank you for joining us this morning here on the Buddha Broadcasting Network. So, goodbye.